Minister denies rumor about premium gasoline elimination. Indonesia Pulp and Paper targets 3.55 trillion rupiah from bond issuance. Good afternoon, viewers in Indonesia and Singapore. Market Headlines is ready to provide you a number of information from business, economic, and capital market sectors. With me, Clara Antawijaya, and this is Market Headlines. And yes, viewers, discourse to eliminate premium gasoline spreads like a wildfire. And finally, Energy and Mineral Resources Minister Arifin Tasriem spoke up. He said that government had never issued such statement. Discourse to eliminate premium gasoline ended up with clarification. Energy and Mineral Resources Minister Arifin Tasriem denied the disclosure on the eliminations of premium gasoline as of January 2021. Until now, the ministry has not received a report on a plan to remove premium gasoline either from Pertamina or directly from the government.
Kemudian terkait dengan BBM premium, sebetulnya kami nggak melakukan statement apa-apa. Ya, juga di antara lingkungan Kementerian SDM maupun BM-nya tidak melakukan statement apa-apa. Yang kami lakukan, yang dilakukan oleh Pertamina adalah mempromosikan Pertalite. Ya, Pertalite dengan harga premium. Ini di beberapa daerah dan ternyata sambutannya cukup baik, sambungannya cukup responsif.
Furthermore, Minister explained, so far what has happened is a promotions program from Pertamina, which sells Pertalite gasoline with the same price as premium gasoline, which is 6,450 rupiah. From Jakarta, Muhammad Olga for IDX Channel. Up to October 2020, state budget deficit reached 764.9 trillion rupiah. This figure is equivalent to 4.67% of the country's GDP. Finance Minister Sri Mulyani said that the realizations on 2020 budget deficit as of October 2020 increased significantly from the same period of last year. Last year, the deficit was only 289.2 trillion rupiah, but this year, the number had swollen to be 764.9 trillion rupiah. In October 2019, the deficit was still below 2% of the GDP, but in October 2020, it was 4.67% of the GDP. In addition, Minister stated that the deficit has increased because the state revenues has fallen. It is recorded that the state revenue as of October 2020 was only 1,276 trillion rupiah. The number decreased by 15.4%. From Jakarta, Rahajo Patmo for IDX Channel. Yes, viewers, the Ministry of Finance updated the realizations of the National Economic Recovery Program budget has still only reached 58.7% of the ceiling budget, whereas the number is now in 408.61 trillion rupiah. The Ministry of Finance recorded that the realizations of the National Economic Recovery Program budget had reached 408.61 trillion rupiah. This means 58.7% of the ceiling budget. Amid realizations that was still far from the expectations, Finance Minister Sri Mulyani Indrawati ensured that the government would continue to strive to accelerate the budget absorptions. But if the budget absorption cannot be done by the end of this year, the government has two options in completing the budget absorptions. First, budget will be added to another program that is better absorbed, and second, following up the 2020 budget to 2021, so that in January to February, there will be economic activity that supports recovery.
kita akan melakukan keputusan untuk peluncuran, atau dalam hal ini dia meluncur ke tahun 2021 supaya di Januari Februari juga akan terjadi aktivitas ekonomi yang di mana APBN mendukungnya. Dan kita sekarang sedang mempersiapkan APBN 2021.
In short, Minister of Finance said that until November 18, the realizations had already reached 58.7% of the ceiling of 695.2 trillion rupiah. From Jakarta, Rahajo Pakmo for IDX Channel. And yes, viewers, moving on to the next coverage, the Ministry of Agriculture is focusing on boosting the growth of millennial farmers. And Minister of Agriculture, by meaning of Syahrul Yassin Limpau, explained that agriculture is an important sector that can support people's lives in the midst of COVID-19 pandemic. The Ministry of Agriculture is focusing on boosting the growth of millennials farmers. For that, ministers aim to produce 2.5 million millennials farmers in the next 5 years. Meanwhile, the head of Ministry of Agriculture's Agricultural Human Resources Extensions and Development, Dedi Nur Syamsi, explained that the key to success has skyrocketed even during the pandemic. As it is known, agriculture is a sector that continues to grow by 16.24%, even in the midst of pandemic.
Dari segi penganggaran sebetulnya untuk pertanian ini turun, tapi produksi tetap meningkat. Artinya apa? Artinya para petani, para penyuluh tetap turun ke lapang, genjot produksi. Terbukti ya, PDB pertanian itu meningkat signifikan positif. Artinya petani kita termasuk di dalamnya petani milenial tetap turun ke lapang semangat untuk menggenjot produksi kita.
This Millennial Farmers Program has been on work since the last year and has received a positive response from the millennials. Ministry's target is to produce 2.5 million millennials farmers. Daddy is optimistic that the target can be achieved given the high enthusiasm among millennials for the agricultural sectors. And technically, Daddy continued, the number of 2.5 million millennials farmers would be realized in stages. From Jakarta, Gilang Praditya for IDX Channel. Market headlines will be right back after this quick break. Stay tuned.
Gabungan Industri Kendaraan Bermotor Indonesia mendukung usulan relaksasi pajak sebesar 0% untuk pembelian mobil baru.
Angka-angka penjualan kendaraan bermotor sangat terpuruk.
Berdasarkan data dari pemerintah ya, saat ini sudah 9,4 juta UMKM yang go digital. Artinya tinggal selangkah lagi ya menuju target pemerintah ini.
Adi akan ada proyek bikin hunian atau tempat tinggal?
Konsepnya adalah membawa kemudahan masyarakat sekitar Jakarta untuk bekerja di pusat kota. Total saat ini Adi Komputer Property mengembangkan 11 titik ya. Kalau Mas baru beli sekarang mungkin udah ke 3.000 sekian pembeli.
Kita bisa mulai merasakan fase 1 di tahun berapa?
Di tahun 2021.
Welcome back to Market Headlines. President Joko Widodo, as Coordinating Minister for Human Development and Culture of Indonesia, Muhadjir Effendi, to make policies that reduce the allowance for joint leave at the end of 2020 during the COVID-19 pandemic.
In the limited meeting this week, President Joko Widodo asked his minister to make policies that reduce the allowance for joint leave at the end of 2020 during the COVID-19 pandemic. The President's direction was publicly informed by the Coordinating Minister for Human Development and Culture of Indonesia, Muhadjir Effendi, in a virtual press conference.
Yang berkaitan dengan masalah libur, cuti bersama akhir tahun, termasuk libur pengganti cuti bersama Hari Raya Idul Fitri, Bapak Presiden memberikan arahan supaya ada pengurangan dan beliau memerintahkan supaya segera ada rapat koordinasi yang dilakukan oleh Kemenko PMK dengan kementerian dan lembaga terkait, terutama yang berkaitan dengan masalah libur akhir tahun dan pengganti libur cuti bersama Idul Fitri.
The government previously decided to abolish the joint leave of Idul Fitri this year. This joint leave will initially be shifted at the end of December 2020. The consideration of reducing the long holiday allowance, which should have received 11 days, came from monitoring the development of the current COVID-19 case. Chairperson of the COVID-19 Handling Task Force, Doni Monardo, asked the government to shorten the long holiday in case of a spike in cases. From all sources, for IDX Channel.
And yes, viewers, recently the aviation industry has shown positive developments. Well, yes, they deserve it because apparently aviation industry is the most damaged industry because of COVID-19 pandemic. But less a positive sentiment immediately emerged, which the government plans to reduce the number of year-end holidays. Such a nightmare for the industry, isn't it? So long holiday is supposed to be a booster for the aviation industry. Moreover, the industry lately showed uptrend rather than downtrend. So viewers, how is the development of the number of passenger in air transportation so far? So let's take a look at the first graphic. Here it is through your screen. You can see the number of air transport passengers. Here it is. We can see the two indicators. First of all is domestic, and the second of all is the international. So let's take a look at the domestic first. As we can see, in January, there's a fresh air. So many transport passengers. As we can see, there were 6.2 million air transport passengers. Meanwhile, in February, it slightly decreased by 5.76%. By meaning of that, 5.79 million transport passenger. But however, in March and April, it got a steep decline by 0.84 million passengers only. And within September, here it is. It was 1.89 million transport passengers when we talk about the domestic air flight. And however, when we talk about the international flights, in January 2020, it was 1.6 million airport passengers. But it got a steep decline as well in May, and it has a break-even point with the domestic ones at the 0.01 million airport passengers. And then in September, the latest data that we can obtain is by 0.034 million air transport passengers. And the year-end holiday is believed to be able to boost passenger growth in the Christmas and the New Year periods. But however, the development of COVID-19 cases is the main reasons of the government to cut the year-end holidays. And nevertheless, the year-end holiday amid COVID-19 pandemic has not been completely eliminated. And this means an increase in the number of passengers still has the potential to occur. And therefore, the Ministry of Transportation has stated that it will continue to adhere the fulfillment of the health protocols on air transportations, whereas air transportation is expected to remain prioritizing public health and safety. And not only year-end holiday, the growth in the number of aircraft passengers is also influenced by a number of factors. One of them is the number of routes provided by the airline. So how many routes that have been available so far? Let's take it into the next graphic. And here it is through the next graphic. You can see the number of aircraft routes that is significantly occurred as the time goes by. Here it is. We can see the indicator within 2015 and it spanned to 2018. Within 3 years only, we can see significant differences in here. Well, when we talk about domestic route, we can see that in 2015, It reached 281 domestic routes. But however, within 3 years, we can see significant differences by 412 aircraft routes when we talk about domestic. And a step aside, when we talk about international routes, we can see that in 2015, the international routes hit 117 routes, but however, within only 3 years, the number emerged to be 170 routes when we talk about international aircraft routes. And these massive opening of the new routes must be hampered by COVID-19 pandemic, and many existing routes have to be temporarily suspended by the airlines. But however, optimism began to emerge, especially with the reactivations of the number of routes and increase in passenger numbers. And the level of flight seat filling is also important indicators. Whereas, for the example, the Global Aviation's Data Provided Agency, or OAG, revealed that the Soekarno-Hatta Airport was in a positive trend. And based on the OAG report, the available seat capacity of Soekarno-Hatta Airport in October 2020 was recorded around 2 million seats, or an increase of 0.2% compared to September 2020. And this figure has even reached around 57% from the positions in October 2019. And not only that, incentives were also provided for the aviation industry. One of them is implementations of exempting passenger service charges at the number of airports. So let's check the information in the next graphic. Through your screen, we can see the stimulus that is provided by the government when we talk about the free passenger service charge stimulus. And it's spread in 13 airports all across Indonesia. First of all, we can see Soekarno-Hatta, Halim Perdana Kusuma in Jakarta, Banyuwangi, Ahmad Yani in Semarang area, and Samratulangi in Manado City, and Yogyakarta, Kulon Progo, Adi Sucipto in Yogyakarta, Igusti Ngurah Rai in Denpasar, Bali, Kuala Namu in Medan, Hang Nadim in Batam, Lombok Praya, and Silangit in Tapanuli Utara, and also Komodo in Labuan Bajo. And these 13 airports has the stimulus when we talk about free passenger service charges. And as the chairman of Indonesia's National Air Carrier Associations, and yes, viewers, chairman of the Indonesian National Air Carriers Associations, Danon Prawira Atmaja, hopes that the implementations of the stimulus from the government regarding the exemptions of the passenger service charges as 13 airports until December 31st, 2020, there will be an increase in the number of aircraft passengers as well. And he even stated that the lower rates due to passenger service charge cut policy can be one of the main attractions for people to move back to vacations in the domestic area. And therefore, he asked the Port Health Office to initiate the process of digitizing the medical examinations results in line with the potential increase in year-end passengers. And regarding the potential increase in the number of passengers at the end of the year, what is the strategy of domestic airlines to seize this opportunity? So let's move on to the next graphic. Here it is. Through your screen, we can see on how airline strategy in welcoming the year-end holidays. First of all, we can take a look at the Garuda Indonesia strategy. First of all, apply various promotional rates, which is very cheap these days, and then open new road, which is Balikpapan to Tarakan, starting from November 21st, 2020. And the third one is that serve export cargo, which is Manado to Tokyo, Bali, and Hong Kong. And then moving on to the second aircraft, which is Lion Air. Lion Air has applied strategy for the first of all opening the new road from Surabaya to Ternate, which will start from November 23rd, 2020, and opening new road from Kupang to Ruteng and starting from November as well in 24th, 2020, and the new road from Kupang to Lewu Leba that's starting from November 30th, 2020. And the President Director of Garuda Indonesia, Irfan Setiaputra, stated that Garuda still prioritizes the aviation services over entering other business sectors, even though many foreign airlines have started to penetrate the non-aviation sector to survive the pandemic. And although so far he confirmed that the number of passengers growth has not returned to the pre-COVID-19 levels. Meanwhile, regarding the opening of the new road, a Lion Air Group corporate communication strategist Danang Mandala said that the company opened a new road after saying that there were still opportunities in the domestic aviation market, especially when welcoming the Christmas and New Year periods. And then, yes, viewers, hopefully the domestic aviation industry stakeholders maintain its continuous efforts and optimism to survive in this pandemic. Stay tuned with us because market headlines will be right back after this quick break.
Senang sekali saya David San Oval dan dapat hadir menemani Anda dalam program spesial dialog webinar on TV.
Setiap minggunya kita akan membahas tema-tema yang sangat menarik. Apa kabar ibu-ibu sekalian?
Sehat ya.
Salah satu ambisi daripada Kementerian Koperasi dan UMKM bersama Spesco adalah koperasi keren, baru, digital gitu kan, yang kita bisa IT.
Pergerakan indeks harga saham gabungan sepanjang perdagangan hari ini tertekan, level 5 ribuan kembali ditinggalkan. Bagaimana analisis Anda?
Masih ada peluang turun lebih lanjut. Kalau misalkan regionalnya memerah, nah maka tidak tertutup kemungkinan kita juga akan ketularan kan.
Dan beberapa perbankan yang diduga melakukan transaksi mencurigakan dan semoga bisa menjadi salah satu referensi untuk Anda dan seperti apa ke depannya.
Baik saja tidak cukup, kita harus betul-betul memahami lingkungan bisnis global yang lebih baik, plus di dalam negerinya sosiologi dan antropologi supaya totalitas kita membantu petani secara efektif.
Kita memang ketahanan pangan, tetapi kita menuju ke kedaulatan pangan.
Ada shadow power yang mendikte pembangunan sektor pertanian bukan oleh Kementerian Pertanian.
And yes, viewers, let's take a look at Jakarta Composite Index intraday movement. So earlier today, JCI was open at the level of 5,677.3. And then approaching the closing time in the first session, the index was on the level of 5,692.06. And then the index was showing strengthening trend by the second session's closing time. And the index was closed at the level of 5,706.89. And in short, JCI went up 0.96%. And next, we're going to see the sectoral movement. Leading the dynamics of today's trading, we got basic industry as a leader of the strengthening trend that went up 1.43%. Trade went up 1.36%, infrastructure that went up 1.21%, and mining as the leader of the weakening trend that went down 0.29%. And as viewers, moving on to the top gainers and the top losers, here are the key highlights for today's trading sessions. MNCN went up 5.58%, SMBR went up 23.9%, HMSP that went up 2.95%, and BRPT that went up 3.83%. Meantime, for the top losers for today's trading, we got ANTM that went down 1.59%. We got Waskita that went down 0.91%. We got TWOR that went down 2.34%, and MDKA that went down 2.92%. And yes, viewers, next we're going to see the intraday movement of rupiah towards US dollar. So rupiah opened at the level of 14,150. Rupiah was also showing weakening trend towards US dollar. I was closed at the level of 14,184. In summary, rupiah went down 0.41%. And as viewers, to pay its top and support business development, India Pulp and Paper is targeting to obtain 3.55 trillion rupiah fresh fund from the bond issuance in December 2020.
To pay its debt and support business development, India Pulp and Paper is targeting to obtain 3.55 trillion rupiah fresh fund from bond issuance. The nominal target is announced in the information disclosure on Indonesia Stock Exchange website. The public offering will be held on December 3 to 4 this year. The bond will be guaranteed with full commitment and will consist of 3 series. Series A with 8.5% coupon, 370 days tenure, as much as 504.63 billion rupiah. Series B, 10% coupon, 3 years tenure, 2.46 trillion rupiah. And Series C, 11% coupon, 5 years tenure, with total value 582.71 billion rupiah. Previously, the company has issued 1.39 trillion rupiah bond in the first stage on May 2020, while the second stage has been issued in August 2020 as much as 1.8 trillion rupiah. The company revealed that 60% of the raised funds will be used for debt installment, while the rest of them will be used for working capital. From our sources, for IDX Channel.
And as your step aside from market conditions, let's move on into coronavirus coverages. Chief of the National Economic Recovery and Transformation Task Force, Budi Gunadi Sadikin, stated that vaccinations is not the only way out, whereas it should be followed by other aspects such as diagnostics and therapeutics. Budi Gunadi Sadikin's statement is in line with the World Health Organization statement, whereas vaccine is not enough to stop pandemic. There are other aspects to be paid attention of. So far, there are 11 companies that are conducting third step of vaccines trial, and those vaccines are already listed on the World Health Organizations. And besides that, the government had also coordinated intensely with existing vaccines companies, and those countries are China, Germany, and England. In addition, the vaccination should be in line with the Ministry of Health command, whereas the vaccine should be listed on the World Health Organization.
Adalah salah satu, tapi bukan di ONU. Ada urusan diagnostiknya, ada urusan terapeutiknya, ada urusan vaksin, dan ada urusan memperbaiki infrastruktur kesehatan. Empat-empatnya harus dijalankan bersamaan.
Here it is an update data about coronavirus globally. And the news close our market headlines today. Please enjoy our next program on IDX Channel, your trustworthy economic business and capital market channel. I'm Clara Antawijaya. Have a nice evening and stay safe.